Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the eighth episode of our learning web development in 2022 series. We're glad to have you join us if you are joining us live for this. And yeah, today's episode is going to be slightly different as we're going to have two hosts in on this session. It's going to be myself, Pius Aboy, and
Usman Hassan.
All right, so welcome. Today we'll be covering introduction to JavaScript, and this slide. So today we'll be covering introduction to JavaScript, and yeah. So far from the series, and like in the last episode we wrapped everything up, like we had like a little bit of an overview of everything we've covered from the first phase, which basically was HTML and CSS. We covered all that. We had an overview of that in the last episode. It was a very short episode just to do that before we come back today. So now we're back today. We'll be learning about JavaScript, and I'll start with introducing JavaScript, and Usman can come in and we'll do some live coding session for you to like see how you can get started with writing your first JavaScript code, and eventually through the rest of the series to see how you can add JavaScript to the example web page we've been building so far. So what is JavaScript? So JavaScript is a programming language, obviously. It's one of the most popular programming languages out there. And yeah, it's a programming language for web developers, and web development it's a hot kick in 2022 or in modern day. So yeah, you hear JavaScript a lot being thrown all over the place. So it's a programming language just like other programming languages. Yeah, and a programming language, unlike HTML and CSS, those things, though you use them for building websites, they are not actually programming languages. So a programming language is actually a language with which you can write instructions that control a computer. So for JavaScript, because it's a programming language for the web, the instructions you'll be writing usually control a web application that runs on a computer or a mobile phone. Yeah, so that's basically JavaScript. So what can you do in JavaScript? If you have a website and you need functionalities in the website, things to control events, it could be as basic as something to happen when the user clicks a button. It could go from being basic stuffs like clicking buttons, adding animation, things like cursor, like an image slider. You can do all that using JavaScript on your website. And if you're a front-end developer, you can use JavaScript to add dynamic data to your website. So building a website with just HTML and CSS, that website usually is going to be a static website, meaning the content, if you need to change any content or every content that needs to be on your site is within your code. So in the case where you need to update the content on your site, you have to manually do that. But JavaScript adds a dynamic functionality to your website. For example, JavaScript has functions like dates, like it's possible to show the current date and time on your website using JavaScript, and the time updates automatically on your page there. So it could move from something that simple to something as complex as actually connecting your app, your website to a back end that was built either with JavaScript or using another language. So this backend could add things like the ability to like save user data on your site and so on and so forth. So as we move on with the series, we are going to keep learning more about how we can add JavaScript to the website we've been building so far in this series. So to get started with JavaScript, Usman is going to dive in to introduce some concepts of JavaScript, and we'll get to see like the first your first JavaScript code run. Maybe we'll run a hello world example or something like that. So Usman, if you're ready, over to you. And yeah, he'll be using while he's getting things set up. He'll be using the console. So console, it's this console we're using is a tool built into Chrome. So if you have Google Chrome or even Mozilla Firefox, most modern browsers have a developer tool built into it. So console is one of those tools within the sets of developer tools. And yeah, so we're going to be running JavaScript from just the console for today, just to introduce like JavaScript syntaxes and functionalities.
Okay, hi, I'm Usman, and I'm going to show you how to get started with JavaScript. So the quickest way to get started with JavaScript is to use the browser consoles, and to do that, all you have to do is just open your favorite browser and right click and click on the inspect menu that shows on the context menu, and then go to the console tab. Now this is your console. You can be able to run any JavaScript program inside the console. For example, you can do 2 plus 2, which by pressing enter will give you the result. So this is a basic simple JavaScript operation, and in the hood JavaScript will solve this for you anytime you type it. Now the basic method we need to know in JavaScript is a console method, which prints out a simple text you gave it. For example, let's see console.log hello world. Now this prints out hello world on the console. Once you type in what you want it to do and you press enter, it will print out the result for you. So let's talk about alert and prompt. So for example, you might come across a situation whereby in a website you saw like a pop-up message that comes from the top or sometimes from the middle if you're using Mozilla Firefox, that shows a message and then an OK button to close it. And that is called alert. And the alert can be created with JavaScript. All you have to do is just call the alert keyword, then use parentheses and pass the information you want. For example, who are you? Then you close it. Now once I click on this, once I click on enter, I'll receive a message that says who are you? You might have come across this scenario several times when you visit the website. And this happens all because of JavaScript. JavaScript makes all of this happen. And then the second one is prompts. Now prompt works like alert but differently. Instead of telling you an information or asking you about an information, prompt will allow you to input your own information into it. For example, what is your name? Now let's press enter. You see, now we have a text that says what is your name, and also we have an input field that asks you to provide your name. So I can write Usman, and then once I press OK, I'll see my name printed out on the console for me. So with JavaScript, you can do more than this. You can create variables and store the value of the prompt inside, and then you can manipulate the variable to use it for something later. For example, let's do something very simple. You can create a variable called name and then store the value of the prompt into it. On the right, what is your name? And then press enter. Now it will ask us to provide our name. Now let's provide that and press OK. Now they didn't print the name out, but it stored a name inside this variable called name. So let's console.log the variable, then we'll have name. So we can be able to greet people based on with their names. Let's do that again. Var name is equal to prompt. What is your name? Let's do that again and see Moses. Let's press enter, and then you can see console.log hello name. It will tell us hello Moses. Now what this is doing is joining the hello keyword and then your name together. Now this is a simple introduction to JavaScript, and with this we can be able to do more than this, more than just asking users for their names. We can perform some complicated mathematical operations. For example, 2 times 2 minus 4 times 10, and to solve it within a second, within a millisecond. And okay, so let's do some simple mathematical operation more. You can see 2 plus 2. We can perform 2 minus 2, which will have 0. And in this case, we don't have if you're trying to divide something, we don't use the divide symbol. We use the forward slash. In the mathematics, forward slash represents divide. And also when multiplying, we don't use times or x, we use asterisk or star to multiply. And also we also have the logical operators like and or. For example, you can see 2 plus 2 or 2 minus 2, which will have 4. Or you can say 2 minus 2 or 2 plus 2. I'll still have 4. Even though 2 minus 2 comes first, which results to 0, then it will go, since the value is 0 and 0 is false, it will go back to the value that resulted true, which is 2 plus 2, 4. And we also have the AND operator. For example, we can say 2 minus 2 and 2 plus 2. In this case, we'll have 0 since 2 plus 2 is false, so it cannot proceed to go to the next hand side of the operation. And basically, that's pretty much about an introduction to JavaScript. In the next episode, we are going to show you how to integrate JavaScript inside your HTML code to manipulate your HTML element. With JavaScript, you can be able to change the text in an HTML element, for example, a text in a button or a text in a paragraph, and also you can be able to change the colors, the CSS properties of an element. And pretty much that's all in this episode, and thank you for watching.
Okay, thank you for that. Before we go, let's mention some concepts, just some overview concepts about stuffs in JavaScript. We've worked with operators. We've worked with I don't know. Does alert work in the console? It doesn't.
Yeah, it will.
It will.
Console. Yeah.
So if you write alert.
If I write alert.
So were we able to show
Hello.
alert a while ago? Did we show?
Yeah, we showed alert. So this is alert.
Okay.
I think every tab has its own console. So even though I decide to separate this console from its tab by going to this triple dots and click on this, and I try to write the alert again, hello world, it will still affect it in the current tab since they're like tied together.
Okay, so that's nice. So yeah, stuff like alert. So our viewers, stuff like alert, it's a built-in function in JavaScript. So every programming language has though alert is a browser-facing function.
Yeah.
So like the standalone JavaScript, actually, like if you're running JavaScript on the server, functions like alert might not work because the server doesn't have a GUI, like a graphical user interface. So when writing JavaScript code, you need to consider that there's a part where it interacts with the GUI as a graphical interface. So one of the things for this course, most of our things we are doing here will be focused on front end. So one thing that it's worth noting is that we eventually learn how to use JavaScript to manipulate the HTML elements that exist in on the screen of your app, website. Like you could target a paragraph, you could target an image, you could target a form, like to read data from the form, like stuff. Those are things we do with JavaScript, so on and so forth. And I think before we go, we've been able to run this code in a console, if it's possible. So let's try just creating a simple JavaScript code within a HTML file.
Okay.
Probably the file from the last.
Yeah.
The file from the last.
Sure, we can try that.
So we just try. So just run the same code.
Yeah. Allow me to open our project folder. So this is our project folder from the last episode. Let me open the VS Code. So let's go to the index.html. Now this is the previous code we have, and you might be thinking that we are going to add our JavaScript file in the head because it makes sense to be on the head, but no. In this case, we are going to add it inside the body along other elements. So to do that, all we have to do is call the script tag, close it, and then in here, in between the script tag, we can be able to write our JavaScript code. For example, we can write the alert, hello world. Now let's save this and try to open it in the browser using Live Server. Now what you'll see that the first thing that will show is the alert even before the HTML renders. So we have our alert. Now if you try to refresh this page, we'll see we have our alert. So beside running JavaScript in the console, that is in the browser console, we can add JavaScript directly in our HTML document by using the script tag, and then write all the JavaScript code in between the script tag. And also every JavaScript code you write here, for example, if you use the console.log hello world, let's save this, let's go back to the browser. Okay, now you might be thinking that we will see the console.log hello world inside our HTML page, but no, we can't see that. We have to go to the console part of the page, and then in there we can see our hello world. This is our hello world. So pretty much everything related to the console will be logged inside the console, not in our HTML document, because these are two different places. And okay, let's do some mathematical operation. For example, we can use a prompt here. For example, you can say var name equals to prompt what is your name. Then you can say alert hello, comma, and then name. Now let's remove the first alerts we have here. Now let's save this. Let's go back. Now we have a prompt that asks us what is our name. You can see Usman. Let's say okay. This will immediately show us alert of hello. Okay, now we see alert of hello only, but without the name, even though we included the name here. So one thing we can do is we can add a plus, which will join the strings together. So let's go back and try it again. You can say Usman. Let's press OK, and now we have hello Usman. So the thing is, I added a comma before because in the console, if you try something like this, console.log hello, comma, Usman, it will join the two strings together and show it out to you. But I guess that doesn't work in the prompt section. That's why it doesn't work. So another way to do that is to use console.log hello plus Usman. This join the two strings together, and you might be confused what is a string. A string, just take it as any characters, ABCDs, alphabets, numbers, or any other symbol that is wrapped inside either a double or a single quotation mark. As you can see, this hello world is in between a single quotation mark, and this Usman is in between a double quotation mark. So it doesn't matter which one you actually use, but you can't use two at the same time. Just know that. But some situation whereby you have to use a single quotation mark inside the quotation mark, then you can choose to use double. For example, Usman's cap. Now this is a situation that you can use double quotation mark, but the inner one has to be single. You can't use double inside double or single inside single. If you use double outside, the inside one has to be a single. If you use single outside, the inner one has to be double. That's how it should be.
So it's all right. So I think that's been a lot of playing around with JavaScript. Like right now, you know how to write JavaScript in the console, the browser's console, or how you can actually embed JavaScript into your existing HTML code by using the script tags. Once you're inside the script tag, like Usman said, subsequently you can now write JavaScript codes. The syntax is quite different from HTML and CSS, but it's something you're going to learn as we proceed with the series. So in the next episode, we'll get into actually learning things that relates to the project we've been working on before. Yeah, so we get to like see how we apply JavaScript to that. And as we learn those things, we'll get to explain them further. So just like Usman said earlier, but we had to come back. Thank you for joining us for today's episode, and we'll see you next week Thursday. Be prepared, we'll have more loaded content for you. Thank you.